today's chief guest, Professor Honorable former Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore, Professor S.N. Negde, my colleagues, Professor S. Srikant Swami, Professor G. Venkatramana, dear students and participants. It is a pleasure to welcome and introduce guests for the World Environment Day celebration 2021. World Environment Day is celebrated on June 5th every year to remind people about the importance of nature. It is celebrated across the globe to tell people that nature should not be taken granted and must be respected for its value. With the coronavirus outbreak and people being confined indoors, the environment and Mother Earth seems to have benefited slightly in the absence of human activities. Amid the coronavirus-induced lockdown, nature is getting time to clean up itself and reclaim its space. World Environment Day is one of the biggest annual events organized by the United Nations to generate awareness about the significance of nature and greenery. The United Nations Assembly established World Environment Day in 1972, which was the first day of Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment. The theme for World Environment Day 2021 is ecosystem restoration, and Pakistan will be the global host for the day. This day will also see the launch of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. In 2020, the theme was celebrated biodiversity. The main idea behind celebrating World Environment Day is to highlight the importance of the environment and remind people that nature should not be taken granted. According to the UN, this day provides us with an opportunity to broaden the basis for an enlightened opinion and responsible conduct by communities, enterprises, and individuals in preserving and enhancing the environment. So it is celebrated across the globe to respect and acknowledge everything that the environment is given us and taken the pledge that we will protect it. On this day, government and normal citizens focus their efforts on particular environmental issues to generate awareness. For this program, so we have our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Hemant Kumar sir, who has agreed to inaugurate, and for the benefit of the participant, I would like to read his biodata briefly. Professor Hemant Kumar is the Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore and was born in Mysore in India on May 21st, 1959. He did his BSc, B.Ed and MSc and PhD from the University of Mysore. Professor Hemant Kumar has published more than 448 research papers in national and international peer-reviewed journals and presented more than 150 research papers in national and international conferences. He has over 1,446 scientific citation and H-index of 24 for his research contributions. As of now, he has given invited and plenary lecture in large number of national and international conferences and meetings. Professor G. Hemant Kumar has successfully guided 20 candidates for PhD, and currently 8 students are working towards research degree. He has sanctioned more research projects by DST, AICT, UGC, and also international collaboration research project to tune of more than 5 crores. He has been member in scientific societies like Indian Society for Technical Education, life member Computer Society of India, life member Indian Science Congress Association, and a life member of IAPR. He has conducted several workshops, national and international conferences in view of academic excellence. Professor G. Hemant Kumar was awarded the Millennium Plaque Honor, that is Prime Minister Award for contribution in the field of science and technology by Indian Science Congress Association in the year 2018. He has been very successful in designing and running the joint MOU programs between Hungarian University, China, and University of Mysore, and generating funds to the tune of 10 crores. He has academic collaboration with European Commission of Education, a network research projects where 6 premier institutes, India and abroad, are working together. Earlier, to become Vice Chancellor of Professor J. Hemant Kumar has served as a different position at the University of Mysore. He has served as the chairman of the Department of Computer Science for 9 years. he was the chief coordinator Vignan Bhavan till from 2009, a multidisciplinary project of rupees 100 crores from MHRD and 50 crores from UGC for the supporting advanced research. Professor G. Hemant Kumar was the member of Maharaja Education Trust, Mysore, which is the premier education institute, governing council member of Gopal Swami Shishu Vihar Trust, Mysore, and governing council member of Sharda Vilas Education Society, Mysore. Professor G. Hemant Kumar has visited several countries as a part of academic exchange and research collaboration on invitation to Nepal, Italy, Sudan, Moscow, Russia, Hungary University, China, Wuhan University, China, Oman, UAE, Geneva, University of Geneva University, and Italy. So with this introduction, I would like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor for this webinar on World Environmental Day celebrations. So along with us, our Registrar, Professor R. Shiva, is currently serving as the Registrar of University of Mysore, and he has teaching and learning with postgraduate students and guiding students for social work towards doctoral PhD program on a regular basis, seeking assignments in project management, research and relationship management for rural, urban, and development programs, HRD, and personal management with leading organization in India and overseas. And he has obtained his PhD from social work with rich experience in teaching, learning, project management, research initiatives. He is expertise in steering projects on rural development, rural water supply and sanitation, etc. And he has contributed significantly in programs designing, planning, implementation, and introduction of innovative approaches in making the program owned by the people. He has rich knowledge of the development and application of participatory strategies like PRA, participatory rural appraisals, PLA, participatory learning and action, and PMW, that is participatory monitoring wheel techniques, advocacy for policy reforms in the government and interdisciplinary levels. And he is an effective communicator with strong relationship management skill and handling on hands-on experience in networking with consultants, NGOs, government agencies, and safeguarding the interest of beneficiaries of stakeholders. Sir, I also welcome you for this World Environmental Day, sir. So along with us, today we have a chief guest, Professor, former Vice Chancellor of Mysore University, Professor S.N. Negde, who is going to speak on this occasion. I request our my colleague, Professor Shrikant Swami, to introduce our chief guest to the audience today.
Thank you, Professor. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Hemant Kumar, our respectful Registrar, Professor Shivappa. I am very proud to mention few words about Professor S.N. Negde, who is a mentor to many professors in this department, in this university, and Professor S.N. Negde, former Vice Chancellor, who served University of Mysore during 1997 and 2003. And before Vice Chancellor in University of Mysore, he served as a professor and chairman, Department of Applied Zoology, Mangalore University, and he successfully guided many students for PhD degree and investigated half a dozen major research projects, including those funded by MacArthur Foundation and Wildlife Society, New York, USA, and published more than 70 research papers, in most of them in peered international journals. And he was a Commonwealth postdoctoral fellow at the University of Reading, UK, and he published. He carried out a very extensive research work there. And he utilized that knowledge, and he brought that knowledge to India and implemented here in the Mangalore University and even in Mysore University, and was an elected president of Indian Society of Comparative Animal Physiology between 1994-98, and he is an awardee of ICMR Visiting Fellowship in 1998 and Karlonsk Institute Travel Fellowship in 1995. And he is elected president of Forum of Former Vice Chancellors of Karnataka, Bangalore, from 2018 to till date, and have been publishing articles on various aspects of higher education in weekly and daily publications after his retirement from 2003, and still is writing many important issues in the national newspapers and journals weekly. And a noteworthy contribution is the discovery of growth factor in the baby food of pigeons, popularly called pigeon milk. Sir, I warmly welcome on behalf of University of Mysore and University of Environmental Science Department. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to grace a few words to grace these occasions.
Our respected former Vice Chancellor, Professor S.N. Negade, sir, Registrar, Professor Shivappa, Professor N.S. Raju, Chairman of the Environmental Science, Professor G.V. Venkatramana, and Professor Srikanta Swami, and many of the participants online, and more than 140 participants are there, researchers, students, and really happy. Today, World Environmental Day. It is the 5th June. It is being conducted by the Environmental Science Department, which is one of the day which is been importance has been given for this day for the environment protection and to create the environment with other peoples and also protect the environment. So there are different things that is this Environment Day is being celebrated by the University of Mysore normally every year by Department of Environmental Science. Last year also, because of COVID, we celebrated like this only. This year also the same what we call situation we have got it. So this has been celebrated across the globe to tell the people that the nature should not be taken for granted and must be respected for its values. And with this coronavirus outbreak, the people are being what we call confined indoors, and the environment and the Mother Earth seems to have benefited slightly. In the absence of the human activity and amidst of the coronavirus induced lockdown, and nature is getting time to clean itself and reclaim the space. So today, what we are watching, so because of the benefit of the humans, we are just what we call destroying the forest, destroying what we call our greeneries, and totally the environment is not what we call what was required. It was not there. So once that nature is imbalanced, we will be getting all these type of problems. Is today, since almost 1.5 years, we are watching how this coronavirus started from China and different part of the country. Even whole world is somewhat, even today it is with fear, because now we are with second wave and third wave when it comes and how it happens and all. So this is because of the creation and imbalance that is created in the environment. So we have to, at least in future, if you want to be what we call more benefited by the nature, you have to keep our environment friendly and eco-friendly. I think today the special talk is on environmental protection needs more action and less debate. So this is the topic. The theme is of this year is ecosystem restoration. So today Professor S.N. Negade is going to speak. He's a very good speaker. So when he was Vice Chancellor, he has done a lot of work to this university. So I had been appointed as a reader when he was the Vice Chancellor, and without that I would have not become today Vice Chancellor of this university, because it was a jump what I got it during that period. So I must remember all the time what we call whenever we meet. So Professor S.N. Negade is going to speak about the right topic today. So I wish you all the best, those who are all listening online. And I thank in this environmental science department who has done this program today. I congratulate them, and also let the webinars be conducted in between what we call 4 and 5 for the various advantage of the students. Because 2 days back I was on online what we call program with the students. Many of the students asked, because we are losing so much of things, sir. So because 10 to 4 we have classes, at least weekly once or twice we can invite the people's, eminent people's, have webinars. I'm going to insist each department should conduct at least 1 or 2 webinars for the benefit of students on online. So I think this environmental science department has done very good research, and also in future also it is going to do. So with these words, I must again what we call thank this department and congratulate the department. Thank you.
I request our honorable registrar to speak a few words in this occasion.
Good morning, everyone. And I wish on behalf of the university, on behalf of our Vice Chancellor and all the people from Mysore, I wish happy World Environment Day, the June 5th of every year. See, as an environmental day, we celebrate with lots of good wishes and all. But definitely during this point of time, we need to realize ourselves, especially as individuals, as groups, as communities, and as small lanes or maybe small groups, ward people, and as a villages, and as a small cities, and as a representing as in a big cities and towns as such. See, things are different from these contexts. So for an individual, nature may be giving a lot of things, but if we live together after this industrialization and modernization and all, so we are with the comfort zone. So we expect everything to be at our doorsteps, and we wanted things to be done at our comforts, and we are not much bothered and cared about the nature and where things come from and how nature is working and things like that. Scientifically, I think one has to understand, maybe all people may not be able to understand scientifically how nature works and how we have to be responsible. Definitely, as a many NGOs, many individuals, many civil society organizations, especially government, responsible for protection of nature as such, they have done a lot of good work so far. So, in spite of all these things, still we are bothered about nature and its protection as such. That's why I think as a responsible citizens, and when industrialization, modernization grows, and we should react to the nature responsibly as individuals. It may not be, it is not a task given to people or task given by some head of the organization or somebody, but it is a responsible behavior has to be inculcated from childhood itself. Actually, families have responsibility to teach children to behave in a responsible manner. And when a child grows in the school environment, they should be taught. And later on, as it is also in India, as per our government norms, we are teaching environmental science as one of the core subject to be taught in all schools. Starting from primary school, high school, and also when it comes to higher education, all these years we are teaching, we are inculcating this kind of attitude. We have to be responsible for our knowledge, our attitude and behavior. KAP, knowledge, attitude and behavior has to be changed from time to time. I think in that way, we are not remembering our responsibility during the time. We should act responsibly, and wherever you are, so we should act. We should do something to the nature. Nature has given so much to us, and we are not giving to anything. When we are using water, when we are keeping clean our environment, it may be house or it may be office or it may be our campus. So we should be responsible. In that way, I think this day has got a lot of importance, and I think our Department of Studies in Environmental Science has chosen a very right person, because Sir has got a rich experience in about protecting the environment, and he has got in-depth knowledge, scientific knowledge about giving a lot of insights, and it goes a very good light, a very good light on our knowledge. I think all the people would benefit. All the more than 142 were there. 142 respondents were there. I think now it is 144 respondents are online. I think it is better than our this thing, offline mode, regular seminar. And all the people are very seriously, they are going to listen. And there would be some questions also. I think Professor would answer those questions. Yeah, Professor would be very happy to hear from you, and also any clarifications and all. And as an environment, as our Honorable Vice Chancellor has said, we are protecting our environment in the campus. And if you see Mysore University campus, everybody would appreciate, because we have given not only the present Vice Chancellor, even the erstwhile Vice Chancellors, they have taken a lot of care in protecting our campuses, environment and all. And we have planted so many trees, more than, I think, 800 species we have planted. And last year, I still remember when Sir's birthday was there, and we planted 61 plants in the campuses. And that has become a kind of habit in our university. And even it has got to the students also. Whenever some birthday takes place, within the premises of their department, they try to plant trees. And also the habit is there. That kind of a good practices are there in the university. And it is very good that our environmental science department has organized this one. And they have tied up with so many departments of government of Karnataka, and also in the local industries to protect the environment. They have tied up a really very good network. They have stakeholders. It is a responsibility of our university as a people teaching theory. So they have a kind of very good network with the practitioners protecting environment. I think this day we would have celebrated much more in having so more people, but this is also very good that we are reaching 140 people. Our professors lecture would benefit all these students, and it will show our responsibility. We will definitely carry out these responsibilities. I wish once again happy Environmental Day, and let us try to be responsible to our Mother Earth, our nature. Thank you very much.
Now I request our chief guest, Professor S.N. Negde, to give his lectures.
Isaka.
Let it be.
Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore and my good friend, Professor Hemant Kumar, the Registrar, Professor Shivappa, Professor Raju, the Chairman of the Department of Environmental Science, and Professor Sikand Swami, and other members of the faculty. More important than anything else is the participation of good number of students and researchers. Ladies and gentlemen, at the very outset, I must thank the University of Mysore and the Department of Environmental Science for remembering me, although it's more than 18 years since I superannuated. Now, before I say something and begin, in the larger context, I must admit, in the larger perspective, that sound and good environment supports good life, good living, and also good livelihood. When we were students of, MSc, my professor used to tell us that as human beings, we are affected or influenced by two sets of factors. One, the genetic, and the other one is environment. These are very powerful forces that would mold somebody's, personality and somebody's functioning and character and so on. I mentioned this topic to Professor Sikand Swami that environmental protection needs more action and less debate. Because the the United Nations and universities and other forums have been discussing about the problem of environment in smaller groups, larger groups, in international conferences for a long time now. But overall, if you have to make a summary and a review, we have not been able to achieve much in terms of conservation of ecosystems and preservation of biodiversity. So we have been talking too much, but doing too less. Now time has come for us to reverse the trend, that we need to perform more and promise less. This is what is required. And all kinds of celebrations are being arranged. And this is one. But the interest of the United Nations is good, but this is not only for celebration, it's also for action, in this direction. Now, let me say something. Since early 1970s, the United Nations has been sensitizing global communities of the need to protect our environment and ecological balance through a series of conventions, conferences, discussions, and publications. Multi-pronged action. In spite of the best efforts of the UN, degradation of our ecosystems by human interference and invasion, I would like to stress it by using this term, invasion, not really desired invasion, most unwanted invasion, has been taking place worldwide rather in unabated manner. The success in restoration and rejuvenation of ecosystems has not been laudable at all. In spite of all this, good discussion, good decision, good projects, what we have accomplished is, not really satisfactory. In the last 50 years or so, that is since 1972, when the concept was developed by the UN, and the first meeting was held in Stockholm, Sweden in 1974. And thereon, every year we mark the occasion as Environment Day. In the last 50 years, we have lost many precious species of animals and plants. And of the remaining, many are made endangered and vulnerable. We have lost large number of them, and larger number of them have been made sensitive, vulnerable, and endangered. Still, the conservation efforts at global level have not been satisfactory. We know the problem. We are fully aware of it. We have got programs on education, on extension. All these put together, the results have not been very encouraging. In other words, what we have witnessed is more deliberation, debate and promises, and less performances, action and implementation, insofar as the dictum or the philosophy of sustainable development is concerned. This has remained a jargon or a slogan. The international concept of sustainable development has remained a good philosophy, a good approach, a good strategy, but we have not been able to achieve much. This is the unfortunate side of it. Health of human societies across the world is inseparably and inextricably linked with the health of the environment around. That's what I told in the beginning, that sound environment really safeguards livelihood, living and life. The best and the latest example to illustrate this intricate relationship is the occurrence of pandemic COVID-19 taking a worldwide toll of millions of lives. There's so much to learn about this COVID. A lasting lesson again. We had learned lessons earlier, but again, one more lesson, that this incident is an open eye-opener that fiddling or meddling or tampering with our environment will have a devastating effect on our lives, and sometimes irreparably. I think earlier on, all the three speakers mentioned that we cannot take environment or nature for granted. We cannot think that nature is dead, that nature does not respond, that nature is, reactionless. No, nature certainly will rebound, nature will certainly react, but the process of reaction is slow. Sometimes we may not be able to feel that nature is reacting. But in the case of virus and other, pandemics, we certainly feel that, this is very devastating. Several ecosystems, such as those of lakes, wetlands, rivers, forests, estuaries, and the coasts, have been degraded by wanton anthropogenic, intrusion. For example, the important mangrove habitat. It has been now accepted very well that habitat loss, that natural habitat degradation is the single largest factor in terms of extinction of species. There are so many factors, natural calamities, floods, and other climate change, increase in temperature, swelling oceans, etc. There are a large number of factors contributing to the destruction, degradation of the environment. But of all these, the most important one that is recognized is the loss of natural habitat of plants and animals. This is very difficult to replace. Mangrove vegetation is one, and Sundarbans is being destroyed, natural habitat. And these are playing a very important role in fisheries, in terms of hatching, in terms of fishery development. As reclamation is time-consuming and expensive, we need to minimize the loss of biodiversity against manifold challenges of industrialization and expanding civilization. It is rather not a sound proposition to say that at any cost we have to maintain the environment untouched, unpolluted, without degradation. It is impossible. What is the wisest thing to do is to go for a concept of sustainable development and see that the impact is very limited, minimum, not maximum, minimum. And in this direction, any report called environmental assessment, impact assessment, EIA, is very important. Somebody has to prepare the report very, carefully, very meticulously, and somebody else has to go through it and implement it carefully. One good example that we can cite in this connection is the halting of the Silent Valley project by late Prime Minister of India, Srimati Indira Gandhi. Engineers had planned a massive, Valley project, a kind of hydroelectric project, because they could catch the river, in the narrowest angle, narrowest point. That is their viewpoint. Their viewpoint is not ecology, not environment. They look at that, but that is one thing. But the other thing is people, complain. People send a representation to the Prime Minister that this area is only one in the world. Of course, we have got Naravi near Karkala and other, these Jog Falls and all in Karnataka. This is one of the few places in the world where you get a rare monkey called, lion-tailed monkey. Silenus, yeah. Macaca silenus, lion-tailed monkey. And somehow madam was convinced that she thought that this is more important by being the only place or rare place for the monkeys, rare monkeys. A project can come up somewhere else, maybe at a higher cost, and it was stalled. It was stalled. I must tell that we cannot leave major projects for the wisdom of engineers alone. Of course, we need people like Sridharan and others, to plan and to investigate. I mean, to plan and then implement and so on. We need such experts, but we cannot leave it to them alone. Audit is not only in terms of monetary, expenditure and income. We have to go for ecological audit, the cost and benefit of various developmental programs. And these cannot be left alone to the planners. I think, it has to be considered, discussed by larger sections of society. The role of birds, bees, and bats, 3 Bs. Birds, bees, and bats in seed dispersal and pollination is well recognized. Without insects, crop production and agricultural, outputs is unimaginable. Most of our children know, or in the school we are taught that bees produce honey. That is a very, auxiliary or secondary product. But most important is the, pollination. It is not possible to have this kind of productivity without these, wonderful agents called insects. And pesticide application and other means of destruction will certainly impact crop production. In any developmental projects, be they railway tracks, roads, bridges, dams, high tension wires, industrial projects, EI is very crucial. Environmental impact analysis will certainly tell us the cost and benefit of a project, and this has to be very scrupulously, examined. I wish to mention with concern that political compulsion should not outweigh and override environmental safeguards. These are not, topics of final conclusion by politics alone. Because political leadership, political ideas, and that are very important in development, but not in all respects. Even if they are important, they cannot override the opinion of the scientists, environmentalists, and others. Something like coronavirus. You cannot ignore the science totally and take a political decision. I think there have been some reports that political decisions, surpass scientific observations about the preparedness for dealing with the, coronavirus. There may be some truth in it. The point here is all important decisions cannot be political alone, although they are important, but they are not all important. When it comes to development, when it comes to environment and the health and so on, we need to listen to people who are well versed. Now, another example is that we are experiencing around Mysore is the vulnerability of the Western Ghats. Western Ghats is not only considered as one of the biological hotspots in the world. Of the 34, we have got 4 of them, and of the 4, the Western Ghats is one. But it's also a mega diversity, ecosystem. We know that. And the World Heritage Site has been a great, recognition. There were opposition to that, but, this is the scientific body, UNESCO, they did consider it. In spite of all this, we see in papers a lot of pressure on politicians to go for mining, to go for roads, to go for, Hubli, Gokak railway line, whatever, The point here is, can we not have alternatives? Can we not avoid some of these avoidable, tamperings? These are very important. So I remember there was a good professor of ecology in Indian Institute of Science called, by name Professor Gadgil. Gadgil was a great scientist, ecologist. He was head of the, ecology and environment department in the Indian Institute of Science for a long time, highly respected, knowledgeable. He gave a report about North Canada and the, the impact of all these development projects. Government was not happy. And they appointed another committee, our NEP, Kasturirangan committee. I don't know how they found Kasturirangan more knowledgeable and able than Professor Gadgil. It's difficult to appreciate. But anyway, the point is, when experts speak, you need to listen. Just yesterday, Chidambaram wrote an article in Economic Times that it's time that you listen to economists. How to reverse the trend, how to prevent the downturn in our economy. You cannot go on taking only political decisions. We have so many experts. They will tell us, and we need to. It applies to Vice Chancellor also. And when I was in the college, somebody said, teaching and learning are so serious processes that you cannot leave them to teachers alone. We need, supplementary and complementary roles of people to strengthen it. The Living Planet Report 2020. Periodically, they bring out this report. And the United Nations Global Biodiversity Outlook, again 2020, had addressed the loss of biodiversity. In fact, back in 2010, today we are discussing about restoration of ecosystems. As back as 2010, International Convention in 2010 of 170 countries held at Aichi, I don't know how it is pronounced, A-I-C-H-E, Aichi, in Japan, Aichi, had resolved to conserve global biodiversity. After 11 years, again, we are talking about the same subject. Again and again, nothing wrong. One of the advantages of speaking about a topic again and again is to remind people. It's to sensitize them more and more. Not that that will yield results, as I told you. There have been more talks and less actions. But we need to really change it now. One of the 20 identified strategies of this conclave was safeguarding ecosystems. 11 years ago, they had identified this, importance of ecosystems for sustenance of species and genetic diversity. We have, lacked the commitment to conserve, but not on plans and projects for conservation. If at all we had failed, it was only in terms of conservation, in terms of new strategies for conservation, commitment for conservation, but not certainly on plans and projects for conservation. We have had wonderful projects, wonderful plans and strategies, but we lacked, commitment to execute them. United Nations had warned some time ago that our planet Earth had already faced 5 extinctions. And if the trend of large-scale destruction of biodiversity is allowed to continue, the world may have to encounter the sixth extinction. I don't know all the five, but one I still remember, 60 or 675 or 670 million years ago, mass extinction of dinosaurs. But the United Nations has warned the people that we have had 5 extinctions. And if the present trend of uncontrolled, unbridled devastation of the environment is allowed to be continued, maybe we are facing towards moving towards the sixth extinction. Awareness on the importance and sustenance of sound and healthy environment should be a pragmatic and feasible activity in our school, colleges, and university. Not only theory. I think Department of Environment Science in our university should come out with models, with the new theories and new hypotheses, new assumptions to be proved, to be tested. It cannot be jugglery, examination-oriented course alone. It should be practical. And live problems will have to be thrown at the students. This is the problem, how to mitigate, how to ameliorate. What is your suggestion? It may be degradation, it may be felling, it may be pollution, it may be something else. So, Professor Raju, I appeal to you to come out with a question bank of 500 questions. Each student will have to be exposed to about 10 to 15 questions every year. Sometime back, somebody said in Harvard Business School, 500 questions are given to students to come out with the tangible solutions of different kinds of marketing, different kinds of challenges for sales, production, demand, supply, etc., etc. So, just this may, not that I have come here with that kind of question mark, but let us prepare a kind of question bank. Let students answer. Right or wrong doesn't matter. You are not going to send them to the gallows or to the prison. We want to elicit their thinking. Given the problem, what would be the remedial measures to mitigate? And I'm closing. Environmental concerns should be adequately addressed in our 6,38,000 villages, 733 districts, 5,000 towns, and 400 cities. We have got Grama Panchayat, we have got Taluk Panchayat, Taluk Zilla Panchayat, etc. But I don't know, there is a village development officer, but I don't think they have got a cell to take care of the environment in that village. Yes, but he must be made responsible, and what is his work? Every village should have an inventory of local plants and animals, and then characteristics, whether medicinally important, as ornamental, as timberling, as this and that, as fuelwood. This has to be enforced. And if you do that, the whole thing will change.
Our environmental department can work with Gram Panchayat.
Exactly. And being a social work, when our registrar should oversee this. Every panchayat should have a small cell. You can't expect every member to be involved, but a small cell. And then go to the taluk level, the district level, the towns, the local bodies. I think you can take the leadership. See what kind of knowledge or system they have in village panchayat. So earlier we never had village development officers. Today we are giving them money, a good budget, and also some allowances for the members and so on. That's fine. But what is the work in terms of conservation of environment? Raju, I want to tell you, Professor Raju, every village should have an inventory of endemic plants and animals, indigenous, and with some kind of remarks, whether it is medicinal important or important in terms of fuelwood or timber or ornamental or revenue.
Some of the villages have been adopted by universities.
There we will start. If you have adopted, we will start this kind of, and let others come and see.
Not villages, projects. Same village.
For all villages, we have to.
Yes.
What is urgently required is collective and concerted effort of all the agencies, not only the government, but also the non-governmental NGOs and also you and I, the enlightened public at large. Enlightened citizens must play a complementary role in partnering with the government agencies and also non-governmental, agents in the conservation of biodiversity for the welfare of future generations. Environment is not only for the present. Environmental preservation is for future generation. So there is a concept of posterity here. What we leave behind in terms of properties is less important compared to what we leave behind in terms of a healthy, sound environment. With this, if there are questions, Dr. Raju, I would be delighted to react. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Dear participants, if you have any questions, queries, please ask. So our Honorable Vice Chancellor is going to discuss and address your questions.
Mike. Now it is open for discussion. No, if you have any queries or anything, no, you can discuss with Honorable Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Shall I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Actually, we are human beings. We want comforts from our ancestors. We want comforts, and this comfort zone is increasing like anything. Everything, whether it is a water, whether it is a telephone, whether it is your clothes, or maybe anything you take that. See, comfort means again you manufacture something, and again that involves some industry. So then again some kind of industrial effluents. So it has to go. And as an environmentalist, so we should be, before we think of a comfort, let us assume what impact it makes on nature, or maybe the disposal of those things. In the whole process, we are going to dispose something to get something. So my concern would be, when we think of comfort for a human beings, we should be, before we make go for that kind of comfort thinking, we should be aware of its impact kind of a thing. Then only we can be responsible for ourselves. And even government should have at least kind of a visionary thing for next 10 years, 5 years, or maybe 15 years. We should not do like this. We should not do these things, or we are allowed to do these things. Like we identify green zones, red zones, or maybe gray zones, like that. Even when it comes to comforts also, or maybe going for a new inventions in making more human beings more comfortable. I think if we think on those lines, as you said, having concerns for the nature, we are on the right track, I think. Maybe I listen to you.
Well, you are right. A big country like ours, whatever policies and programs you enunciate at the national level, if it has to percolate down to villages, and the country is known for cluster of villages, it takes time. In between, there might be so many problems for implementation. Professor Shivappa, I honestly feel, if at all you want to demonstrate some change in terms of environmental conservation, the movement will have to start at the level of villages by people's involvement. We have to educate. Look here, if we cannot have good environment, we will be no more. Our children and great-grandchildren and grandchildren, they will, suffer. Do you want this? We are today, you said, in a comfortable zone because our ancestors had bequeathed a fine environment, had left behind a sound environment, sound nature. and natural products, including in the population of insects for pollination. Don't you think we have an obligation, a futuristic obligation, a futuristic sense of living, that we have to leave behind this environment in a fairly livable condition, in a fairly habitable condition? So without expecting too much from the government, without commenting on the laxity of the government, if there are any, I would start my own movement, like Chipko movement. He died recently. Bahuguna, right? They are all selfless. So we have to produce some Bahugunas.
Planted so many trees.
In our adopted village, tell you. Let us show them.
Yeah, you can talk.
Kill.
Yes, madam. Shanti madam.
Hello. I have a small issue about water. Is water also an environmental issue?
Oh yes,
Sure.
Oh yes.
How it is important to make people realize the importance of water. The wastage of water, you've got to see to believe it. Well, how do you go about with this? How to sensitize people to save water?
Water is a non-renewable source of, our requirement. Conservation of water is very important, very useful way we have to use the water. It is not only the availability, but it is also the question of distribution and management. We need to manage the available, water resource very intelligently. And we have to educate people how we can really conserve the rainwater. People build compound walls worth crores of rupees, but people don't have a tank to conserve rainwater. People go for asphaltation indiscriminately. They don't know, or they are unaware of the fact that unless you allow the water percolate, your groundwater will not be rejuvenated. So there are many ways in which we can improve the availability of water, and also minimizing the wastage. And more important is, in this country, we have not gone for recycling water, the wastewater or the sewage water. We have water for purpose of what you call primary purposes, drinking, bathing, that's fine. But we also need for secondary purposes, in our toilets and gardening, in our garages, and so on. Today, unfortunately, in Mysore, if you see, the same Kaveri water is used for all these. And the foreigners really, are wonderstruck. How that you are using the same potable water, drinking water, for all these secondary purposes. So, crisis of water management is there, but we have to find new means and ways and strategies of good management.
Yes.
I hope I answered your question.
Sir, I want to tell few things. Madam, it is true that water is a very important thing. Now, water and health goes together, and a very famous saying is that water, everywhere water, but there are no single drop of water to drink. This is happening everywhere because we can see most of the water bodies like lake and streams, that means rivers, they are all polluting because of human activities. It may be due to the industrialization or domestic activity or agricultural activity. Irrigation itself is a victim of water pollution. So, as our Professor Ignace sir mentioned, now it is a very important time for water management, water conservation. Sir, Niranjan sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, Niranjan.
Uh-huh.
I'm here.
Yeah, I thought you would join us here.
I think so, but I was listening your lecture. If I were come there, I would have missed your lecture in the computer. That's what I'm sitting here. I would have
Thank
missed
you.
your lecture.
Thank
The
you.
only thing is, many of the flora and fauna is become endangered in the area of plant diversity or in the forest or in the environment. It become endangered now.
ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಸರ್.
ಹೇಳಿ.
Become endangered now.
ಅದೇನು
ಅದು
Crossing.
ಬೇರೆಯವರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
So this endangered species conservation is very important for the biodiversity point of view.
ಹೌದು.
And people have to concentrate on the genetic biodiversity,
Yeah.
genetic pool. In genetic pool, endangered species is very important to add. If they are not pooling that gene pool in genetic biodiversity, then very difficult to retain the endangered species. You know that most of the medicinal plants, most of the wild species, now wild species are very useful for the genetic engineering.
Yeah.
So there are lot of wild varieties are taken for the transfer of genes. That is the genetic engineering and genetically modified crops what we are using in biotechnology now. So that genetic biodiversity is the very important area to concentrate.
You're right.
So for that the diversity board need not only concern which are the plants are there. For example, eucalyptus is high number is there, Bongania is high number is there, neem is high number is there. They wanted to conserve those plants. Instead of conserving those plants, they have to conserve the endangered species, which are very important
Yeah.
medicinally. So all the drug discoveries are going for the wild plants and wild medicinal plants now. So all tissue culture and genetically modified crops, genetic engineering, gene manipulations, and pooling of this genetic biodiversity is very important in my opinion to conserve it.
You are absolutely right. When we speak about diversity, we know there is genetic diversity, species diversity, ecological diversity, and so on. And therefore, we don't know the nature of genes in wild plants and in wild animals. Many people ask the questions, why are you bothered so much about tiger? Nobody knows the genetic complex of, the genome of tiger. And all for future biotechnological research and future breeding, future research, we need this rare genetic pool. We have to keep them. Today, we are coming out with the new tools, provided we have the genetic, biodiversity or genetic diversity. Tools are being developed. So we need to keep these wild animals and wild plants. We can't afford to lose them.
Yes, sir. Oh no, never. So that's what only my worry is the genetic biodiversity has to be concentrated. And today we are very happy to listen to your lecture after a long time in the university computers. And we are seeing you from last new young generation. So seeing Professor S. Negle in computers listening to your lectures are illuminating.
Thank you.
And I thankful to the organizers by inviting you and making you to present address to the new generation of teachers and students of the university.
Thank you.
I think I thank
Very good, sir. Very good suggestion. We value your suggestion. I already given my mind to Professor Raju as to how to bring in a change.
Yes, yes. It's need of the hour to go for the change. And also to concentrate on the advanced studies in environment. What is the advancement we need as far as the new science is concerned and emerging science is concerned? Not to stick on to the conventional environmental biology. Now to environmental science has to concentrate on the coming up problems and issues. One madam has raised the water issues. Water is going to become a crisis in future. We know that we will not get the drinking water in future. After 10 years, 20 years, definitely we will face the problem of water. For that, we have to make the basic strategies for the conservation of water. One day will come, we have to go to drink the Haridwar and Rishikesh water which is flowing from the mountain. We have to catch and conserve. We need not get the underground water also. Today, you are digging a underbore for 700, 800, 1,000 feet. In Gulbarga, if you dig 1,000 feet, there is no water. So water crisis will become the major problem in another 10 days, 1 decade or 2 decades. For that, in the beginning itself, we have to make some of the strategies how to conserve the water. And water crisis is a major problem in future. And in the meantime, agriculture is facing a water problem again. And all the hybrid and varieties are developing hybrids which is for the irrigated crops. If water is not there, those hybrids will not survive in the field as far as hybrids are concerned in the irrigated crops. So, lot of challenges. So, environmental science has to concentrate those kind of new issues and the problems and challenges in future.
Very good suggestion. The scarcity of water can be really tackled not by one approach, by several approaches. One is to regenerate the groundwater. Second is the very careful management of water availability, available water. Third one is to go for dry cropping. We have got international crop research. You are biotechnologists. You know, we can also have dry crops. We can have crops with less, water. Mandya people need not necessarily go on for hundreds of years with only 2 crops, one sugarcane, second rice. They also have to think of alternatives where they can depend on less water. So therefore, I am appealing to Professor Raju. It's good that you raised all these important aspects, Professor Niranjan. I'm appealing to our environmental science. I also gave a lot of support when I was the Vice Chancellor to this department. I'm appealing to Professor Raju and his colleagues to come out with simple models, to come out with tangible, solutions. Not the entire Mysore district, but in our own way, in a small way, in our adopted villages.
Other thing is every year environmental day and every university, and I planted 14,000 plants in the campus. You have seen that in the Gulbarga University. So we are planting the plants sustainability. Whether that plant is survived after 10 years, 15 years, nobody is monitoring.
You have done it.
Because most of the plants
I have seen your operation on the campus of Gulbarga University. I had already expressed my, pleasure.
14,000 plants.
So delighted. Not only you planted, but you also protected them so that they could come out.
Protecting is important. So many of the plants are dying because of scarcity of water. We are not supplying water for the plants once we are planted. And that monitoring is very important for to see how the plant is surviving or not.
Professor Niranjan, I am requesting Professor Raju to have a small advisory committee, for implementation of certain programs in which people like you should take active part.
Yes, because registrar is sitting there. Registrar is very active in environment. He is working on the
already.
Government is telling to adopt 5 to 10 villages for all aspects. Greenery is the one, and everything.
We have already under Smart Village project and Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, we have already selected more than 10 villages, and we are concentrating from all holistic development, comprehensive development. Environmental science department people can tie up with the gram panchayats. As our Professor Yagde sir said, he has come out with a very good plan to come out with the 500 questions which students can solve these problems. Even sometimes students or sometimes villagers. Villagers can solve these problems. They very creative people are there in the villages. I have worked in the villages for more than 17 years, very closely. The near and the water which was near and dear was now it is far and distance. Water has gone down. And with earlier we used to get water in the open wells. Now we'll have to go to deep tube wells, and now we are too much dependent on the electricity, and a lot of energy is going on. So the things which were near and dear to us now have become deep and distant. So problems also cropped up over a period of time. I think we need to chalk out. We need to chalk out with our cropping pattern, our comfort zones, especially when we think about a comfort. Comfort means it's causing for the nature, causing impacts to the nature. So human. I asked a question to Professor Hegde sir. Comfort means human population's comfort means causing impact to the nature, whether it is a positive impact or negative impact, that we must know before we go for a comfort. So that's what we should think about it. And as a university, as Professor Niranjan sir has said, and also he has done a wonderful work in the Gulbarga University campus. We have, even in Mysore University also, we have planted, every year we are planting new trees, and we are safeguarding the environment. We are also teaching our students, and we are inculcating the good habit, good knowledge, good attitude, and good behavior, environmental responsible behavior, environmental responsible knowledge, and environmental responsible attitude we are inculcating amongst our students. And students also are model to general public. Say, as one of our Madam Shanti, she raised a question about water conservation, importance of water, and things like that. And Professor Baswaya is there, and Professor Jagdish is there, and so many people are doing voluntarily on their own. And as a environmental department, they are doing wonderful job. They have tied up with so many industries. As I know personally, they have tied up with so many industries working on workable plans. I think we need to be, as a university, we are trying to be model to other universities from environmental concerns. And let us try to do, not only, as our professor said, not only talking too much on this one, let us try to initiate action, whatever is possible from our side, as individuals, as groups, as communities, as people representing from lanes.
Our trump card is our adopted villages.
Adopted villages, sir.
We will have a chance to demonstrate.
Yes, sir. As a holistic development, as Niranjan sir said, he comes out with a plan from his own point of view. Environmental science department, they come out with, but as a social work, we organize people. We are good at organizing people, bringing people together as individuals, as groups, and we make them to listen to us and listen to them. Both, it's like a mutual. We cannot do on our own unless and until we have a cooperation from the people. And definitely, as our SN Hegde sir said, Gram Panchayat level environmental plan. See how many trees we have, what kind of species we have. Is it a medicinal plant? Is it something? Definitely, each and every Gram Panchayat will have a medicinal plants and something very specific to, because this nature is very unique. So similarly, we should develop ourselves and try to influence our students, so that all our students, more than 120,000 students, both UG and PG, they will, if we reach these 120,000 students in a very gradual manner, we can make a wonderful impact on the nature. And definitely Mysore region and this region, we have protected our environment because we salute our ancestors, our great grandfathers, because they have protected us, and we need to do our job. And let us try to give something to the next generation, our kids, our people who are responsible. I think as a university, as a department, as individuals, we try to do our to our level whatever is possible to some extent in this manner. Yes, sir. I congratulate really our environmental science department for having organized this wonderful seminar, and more than 150 participants are there on the card, on the in the line. Now I think Professor would conclude, or maybe if there are some questions from students or maybe some research faculty, anybody, not only people who are here who are going to answer, Professor Niranjan sir would answer, or maybe Jagdish would answer, or anybody on the panel, if you raise your question, and definitely we are eager to listen to you, sir. Thank you very much. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Sir.
Hello. Yes, sir. If time permits, I would like to ask one question to the former Vice Chancellor, sir, Hegde sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Please.
Sir, before, yes, sir. Sir, it was an enlightening lecture, sir. We really enjoyed. After so long time, we are listening to you, sir. Agree, sir. Hello.
Sorry, from microbiology department.
Sir, my simple thought is,
Yeah, talk.
yes, sir. Sir, I am Dr. Srinivas from microbiology department. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I am Dr. Srinivas from microbiology department, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. My simple thought is, before this pandemic, our 10 cities have been listed most polluted cities of the world, sir, actually. So during that time, government has initiated many activities, but somehow all activities were stopped during this pandemic. Do you think it is the right thing to stop at this time, or they should have any extra efforts to come out of this problem, sir?
Can you
Hello?
repeat your questions? It's
Sir,
not very
during
clear. No, first part is okay. So some 10 of our, our cities are the most polluted in the world. That's fine. But what's the question?
No, cities which are listed, there are 10 cities in the
I know.
India is more polluted.
Howdo?
And now government is taking some actions like to make some restoration, something like
But where is the question there? What is your question? I didn't understand.
Srinivas sir.
Srinivas,
It's okay, sir, you can tell.
no, I can tell anything, but I have to answer his questions.
Yes.
Yes, sir. What are the measures to be taken during this pandemic period to reduce the pollution in the polluting cities, sir? Because nobody is doing anything in that line, sir.
Now, the cleaning of the polluted cities has nothing to do with the rampant occurrence of pandemic. Pandemic has come, regardless of the pollution of the cities. Today, you find pandemic even in rural areas. It has no direct link with the highly polluted cities. But if you at all want to clean up the cities, then you have to take multi-pronged action. You have to look into the industries, their emissions. You have to look into the effluents, where they are drained to. You have to look into mining. You have to include, see the production of plastics and the recycling. There are so many ways in which we have been tampering with the environment. And therefore, it's a big, challenging, daunting task. One approach cannot bring in the desired change. But one thing I must tell you, pandemic, the COVID-19 and its spreading has nothing to do with the polluted environment in some of our major cities. Whether it's polluted or unpolluted, the virus will not make a distinction. It will spread through the air.
Yes, sir. You are absolutely right, sir. What I'm thinking is, now totally government has forgotten that polluted 10 cities, sir. Nothing is doing. Nobody is speaking about that.
Look at the municipal arrangements. We have got town municipalities, we have got city municipalities, we have got corporations, we have got, Brahat, Bangalore, Mahanagara Palike, metros, metropolitan cities. They have got all kinds of, stakeholders and facilities. They have not been addressing the problem properly. So the people will have to take into, task. And I'm very glad that there are public interest litigations filed in the high courts whenever there is some kind of unabated pollution, rampant occurrence of diseases and so on. One good thing has happened in the last few years, and that is increased awareness. Increased awareness about the importance of education, importance of higher education, importance of clean environment. People are getting increasingly enlightened. But that's not enough. They have got to be more responsible. We are known for criticizing. We are known for passing the buck. I don't do anything on my own. I only expect somebody else to do it. So that has to be stopped. So again, coming back, ours is a university. Ours is not Mysore City Corporation. Ours is an education institution. And Professor Raju and Professor Chiopa, they tell me that we have got adopted, villages. So whatever we want to do as a small model, as a working, proposition, as a working viable solution, we will demonstrate, through these villages. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question?
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So my name is Krishna Priya, and my question is, what are the reasons for the increasing of spreading of COVID-19 among the zoo animals?
See, so far we have been lucky that we never suffered from what is called zoonosis. Zoonosis is a subject that tells about the transmission of animal diseases into human beings. Originally, it was conceived that coronavirus was endemic, was limited to, bats and pangolins. And it so happened that people started eating raw meat in, one of the largest raw meat markets in Wuhan in China. So one theory is that, although the WHO committee has not confirmed, one theory was that it has come through that. People started eating raw, meat, and these viruses were there in the bats. They're still there. So your question is how it is. What did you ask? What is the question? Yeah, and today, day before yesterday, there was a report from China that bird flu, H1N1, not H1N1, H1N1, bird flu. There is an instance case of the bird flu infecting a human subject. So these are occurring now. Zoonosis is increasing. Earlier there were separate domains. Animal diseases, they were separate from human diseases. There was a kind of barrier. But unfortunately, this barrier is being broken increasingly these days.
Vote of thanks.
Yes. Good afternoon, one and all. So respected Vice Chancellor Hemant Kumar sir, and respected Shivopa sir, Register, and also respected Endangered sir. So today I wish you World Environment Day. The theme is restoration of ecosystems. So in this regard, we discussed in our department to invite Professor Endangered sir, and sir, in spite of his busy schedule, sir has accepted our invitation, and also he gave very good lecture on restoration of ecosystems and water resources management, and also other terrestrial ecosystems. So nowadays, this ecosystems is going to deteriorate in a larger scale. That is why the United Nations has given this decade.
I want to interact with your student.
This decade as a decade of ecosystem restorations. So that need ecosystem restorations, sir has given a detailed information on behalf of University of Mysore, on behalf of Department of Environmental Science, and on behalf of our personnel. Sir, we are thank you very much for giving this elaborate lecture, sir. Thank you, sir. And I thank you, Professor Shivopa sir, and in spite of his busy schedule, you listened the talk
and also he's interacted with the students, and he gave many suggestions for adopting the villages to improve the water quality and also ecosystems. Sir, on behalf of Department of Environmental Science, thank you very much, sir, for giving these suggestions. And our chairman and sir, Niranjan sir, our ex-vice chancellor, Gulbarga University, sir, as he gave valuable suggestions with related to plantation, because in Gulbarga University we know that has planted many 60,000 plants in Gulbarga University campus and also other villages. That sir has given an idea and future how to plant in our university also. Sir, we have taken your suggestions and also your guidance. In the future days, we have to do this in our university campus and also villages in and around Mysore, sir. Sir, thank you for giving these suggestions. Thank you very much, sir, on behalf of department and personally, thank you, sir. And all participants, you also interacted and you gave some ideas and questions, so that we are the Department of Environmental Science. We have to come forward to bring some suggestions and strategies, how to bring out and also how to reduce this pressure on natural sources. So that definitely we will take into positive way and we will come into sir. Thank you one and all for interacting and also participating in this seminar, World Environmental Day. Thank you one and all. Thank you, sir.
Some industrialists, some people